sure that you clicked on this video because you are an actor auditioning for an acting course and you don't have a lot of experience with devising. And you might even have an active dislike for things like devising. But you've been tasked with creating a piece of devised theatre for your acting auditions, and here you are. Hello. We are going to figure out how to tackle this task and come up with some ideas, regardless of whether you have devised in the past, regardless of whether you actually like it or not, and regardless of whether you know what you're doing. So first thing to note is that devising will be part of your acting course in one way or another. It's going to be a heavy focus in your first year, a pretty moderate focus in your second year, and less so in your third year. And it will also filter into your acting career. This idea of coming up with ideas in the moment, in rehearsal rooms, in play with an ensemble, that is kind of the bread and butter of rehearsals for a professional show. Trying out ideas and coming up with different ways of playing things and expressing those things in forms that you might not be readily used to. That's the whole crux of it. And frankly, devising is fun. And if you invest in this task that the audition panel has set for you, then you might unlock more of your process than you first thought. Now this is going to be in two parts. In this first video, I'm going to be giving you ideas for where to start, where to spark ideas, and find the elements that you can begin creating from. And the second video is going to be about how to develop those ideas, how to actually set it into a form, rehearse it, and finalize it. So watch both, because both are important and you need both, so watch both. So the first question I always get when people are really struggling with devising is, what should I do? And it's very, very tricky, I know, because it's kind of like when you were in English class at school and your teacher just gave you a blank piece of paper and said, write a story. Like you were just kind of supposed to creatively freestyle write something with no parameters, no rules, no indication, no stimulus, no nothing, just write something. And your mind automatically goes blank as if your brain has actually just gone on holiday to the Bahamas and is nowhere to be seen. So first things first, I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna get it out there and you can come for me, you can try and fight me if you want to, that's fine, but I am gonna say it. Do not just write another monologue, and do not just write and sing a song, and do not just write a song and play it on a musical instrument. Why? Because that is not the task. That and the audition panel have already set that task for you in the form of bring some monologues, possibly bring a song. So doing that again for your devising task is like a wasted opportunity. You're just repeating yourself. You're not giving the audition panel anything new, no more insight about how you creatively work and the kind of stuff that you want to be making. Because surely if that's what they wanted you to just write another monologue, they would have asked you to do that, but they didn't. So that's not what they want. And before you say it, yes, I know the school did say you can incorporate song and music and self-penned monologues and whatever within your piece. But there was the key word, incorporate, not make it the entirety. So you can have elements of song and elements of a written monologue, but that shouldn't be the entirety of your piece. There's no point in just repeating what the audition panel have asked you to do in other areas of the audition process. So if you can't do a monologue and you can't do a song, what should you do? Well, I would say don't decide until you've tried some stuff out. The whole point of devising is to discover, to get curious, to try things out and see what sticks. Because if you sit down with a notebook and you just say, I am going to do this and this alone, then it kind of defeats the object of the exercise here. You've got to play like children play. That's how they create things. So let's brainstorm. The first step is to start with what you already have. And by this, I mean your skills. I worked with someone a couple of years ago and he mentioned, as we were prepping his monologues, that he was a boxer. So of course, when it came to his devising piece, I was just asking him about his boxing experience. And what do you know? Combinations of boxing routines and his story about his first fight came into his devising piece and was the center of it. And it was really, really amazing. And it was something that set him apart from other people in the audition room because he was capitalizing on the skills that he already had. So I want you to start thinking, what have I already got? Have I got dance ability, martial arts? Do I rap? Do I play instruments? Do I play sports? Like, what do I have up my sleeve? Now, a good way to get curious about these skills and to discover new things about them is to use them in unusual ways. So an example of this would be if you play the trumpet, for example. So a Devise piece, if you weren't thinking any further than surface level, would be to, okay, well, I play the trumpet, so I'm just going to compose a brand new song on the trumpet, perform that, record that for my self-tape, and that will be enough. That's really boring, sorry. But what would happen if you started to discover what it would be like to play increasingly faster and faster and faster and faster and faster until it was almost unsustainable? It would start to get messy, you would start to get flustered, you would forget bits, you would get frustrated, you would kind of, tie yourself up in knots about it. I would ask you to do that because what you're going to do is you're going to discover emotions and potential situations where this would occur. So already in my head, I would think, okay, well, if I'm playing the trumpet and I'm playing as fast as I possibly could, what situation would that be in? So maybe you're a trumpet player who's playing in an orchestra, but you've got a flight to catch that evening, and you sit down to perform in front of thousands of people, and you discover what the time is, and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to catch my flight. So you start to play increasingly faster and faster and faster to try and encourage the rest of the orchestra to play as fast as they can so that you can leave the performance early and go and catch your flight. Or maybe, again, you're still playing the trumpet, but you're a busker in the street and you're trying to get money from passers-by, but they're walking past far too quickly for you to actually show them what you do. So as they walk by, you try and play as fast as you can in order that they give you money. And these are just ideas off the top of my head. And the stimulus for this was taking a skill that you already have, turning it on its head and finding a new dynamic with it. You start to figure out what a potential story could be. Another thing that you can do is start with a dilemma. Now notice that I didn't say start with a theme. It's incredibly GCSE drama. Themes are very vague and open-ended and a little bit pants, so don't start with those. Like, oh, the theme of love or the theme of rejection. Like, oh my God, it's just so incredibly boring and very, very basic. But if you start with a dilemma, that instantly has a little bit more to it. So the two examples that I had just before about the trumpet player, they were both dilemmas. You have a problem that you need to solve. So your Devise piece could be about exploring how to come right of that problem. Again, it creates a story. So give yourself some time to just write down potential brainstorming ideas of what dilemmas could come up. And keep these super, super short, just like the trumpet idea. And the key here is to not think any further forward about the process. Just devise some dilemmas. You don't need to think about how you're then going to execute these, because a surefire way of stifling your creativity is holding yourself hostage to this idea of, oh, well, I need to make this work. Just write down some ideas. You can figure out the rest later. Give your brain permission to just think a little bit bigger, but not complex. Complexity is the enemy here, okay? You don't want things to be complex, because the more complex something becomes, the vaguer it can potentially become. Another thing that you can do is start with an object. And this can be something that you already have, and it can be something that is just incredibly ordinary. So this can be something like a scarf or a book or a Christmas ornament or a spatula or whatever, and give yourself a bit of time to play with this object. Again, like you did with the skill, turning it on its head and using it in unusual ways. So of course you could read the book, but what would happen if you flipped through it, you used it as a roof, as a shelter, as a shield? What would it be like if it was a chicken instead of a book? The same with the scarf. Yeah, okay, you can wear it as a scarf, but again, it's kind of boring. But what happens if the scarf is 1 minute a pair of handcuffs, and then it was someone suffocating you, and then another minute it was a baby? I don't know. This is a really, really lovely idea, because you can take one object and throughout your devised piece, it can transform from one thing into another, that you're thinking outside of the box. You're not just taking an object at face value, you're looking a little bit deeper and creating ways that it could potentially be something else. I actually worked with somebody last audition season on their devised piece, and they had this like porcelain little doll's house ornament thing that had little doors and windows and things like that, and it was really small and quaint and it was lovely. And 1 minute it was a telescope, the next minute it was actually a handle to a front door that she went through, and then it was a letterbox that had a letter in, a love letter inside it. And it was lovely seeing her progressing from one moment to the next, and the object being the only constant, but something that wasn't consistent was what the object was. It was really dynamic and really interesting to watch. And your piece can be entirely that if that's something that excites you. Another thing that you can do is start with a sound. Because why use words when you can just use sounds? Or at least think about incorporating sound within your piece. Now, this can be sounds that you create with your voice. It can also be sounds that you create with the object that you were using or the skill that you were employing. It could be clapping, it could be stamping, it could be breathing, like different qualities of breath. Again, I worked with someone a couple of years ago that their object was a scarf, but the scarf was strangling them and stifling them. So what she was exploring was the sound, the quality of sound, which was raspy sounds and then gasps, and then she would launch into saying certain phrases over and over again in Russian and then in English. And it was really creepy and really cool and really interesting. You could also start with a stimulus. Now, if you're auditioning for places like Central, they are going to give you a stimulus, which are usually paintings and voice clips. But if you are not auditioning there, then you can find your own stimulus. Go to an art gallery, pick an article from a newspaper, look at a family photograph, take a walk in nature and see what you see. Another good one is to Google photographs from your birth date and month, but from 100 years ago, and see what comes up and see if anything sparks a little bit of imagination in you. And do the same thing again. Use the stimulus to trigger sound, to trigger objects, to trigger dilemmas. Maybe there's something in the background of a photograph that piques your interest and it's an object. Maybe you see two people in this newspaper article and there's a dilemma there and you can expand on the ideas of that. You could literally go anywhere. So if you're really struggling with ideas, they're really good places to start. Now look, at the end of the day, when it comes to your devising pieces, it is not about getting things right and getting things wrong. It is about you creating and discovering and getting curious. That is what the audition panel want to see. They don't want to see you just kind of towing the line and doing the same thing that you were doing with your monologues. That is a wasted opportunity. So what I encourage is go big, go bold, go a little bit offbeat, go a little bit weird, go a little bit more abstract. Now, if this is an area that you really struggle with and you want to do more of a deep dive and get some more insight and be alongside like-minded people who are doing the same tasks as you, then I would recommend signing up to my online platform, act.cool. Because on there, we've got tools, we've got resources, we've got training videos and the community, as well as having live workshops. And what do you know? One of the workshops is going to be all about creating your devised piece for these kinds of auditions. So if that's something that you're interested in, then make sure that you sign up. All of the details are in the description box below. I really hope that you enjoyed this and I really hope that you found this useful. Make sure to tune in to part 2 of this that's coming out in a couple of days. Happy devising, happy discovery, happy creating, and I will see you in the next one.